Good morning. All right, lively crowd this morning. My name is Samantha Biddle. I am the chair of the Maryland Transportation Authority Board. Today is Tuesday, November 25th, 2025, and I hereby call this meeting of the MDTA Board to order at 9:02 a.m. This morning, we're having our meeting in person here at MDTA headquarters, and in accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being live streamed on the MDTA Board webpage. I'd like to say welcome to everyone here joining us this morning in the room, and for the record, members Carol and Sneed are joining us this morning via conference call. As a reminder, I ask that anyone who's in the room with us this morning to refrain from speaking unless you are presenting or answering a question to avoid background noise on the live stream. I'd also ask members to speak loudly and clearly so that those in the back of the room are able to hear you. Also, please say your name when motioning or seconding to help with the meeting minutes. Happy to say that today we're being joined by Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, who's joining us shortly, and Delegate Bob Long, who'll be commenting on agenda item number 6. So welcome. Once agenda item number 6 has been presented, I will call one at a time to the presenters table for comments. For those who are watching this meeting via the live stream, we have posted the materials for today's meeting on the MDTA board webpage so that you can follow along if you would like. Before starting with today's agenda, I would ask for board approval to change the agenda as it stands. We would like to move agenda item number 4, contract approvals, after agenda item 11, contract modification. Is there a motion to adjust the agenda?
Member Cox.
Seconded?
Member Von Paris, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Aye.
The agenda stands as modified. We will now begin with today's agenda. Agenda item number 1, if I can find it in front of me here, is the approval of the open session meeting minutes of our October 30th, 2025 meeting. Any discussion or corrections to those minutes?
Member Kanjemi, I move for approval.
Is there a second?
Member Arndinger, all second.
Thank you, Member Arndinger. All those in favor of approving the open session meeting minutes from October?
Aye.
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 All right. Our open session meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Our next agenda item is the approval of the closed session meeting minutes from October 30th, 2025.
So moved. Member Cox.
All right. Move to approve. Member Cox. Is there a second?
Second, Member Cordova.
Thank you, Member Cordova. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. All right, we are approved there as well. Thanks, everyone. Next on our agenda, we will receive an update on the independent auditors report for fiscal year 2025 financial statements audit and SOC 1 and SOC 2 reports. Joining us are Mr. Seymour and Ms. Wynn. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Bill Seymour. I have with me Tiana Wynn. I am the engagement partner on the overall engagement, and Tiana was the audit partner. We had previously met with the Finance and Administration Committee on November 13th, where we walked through our materials in detail. We've provided a high-level summary. I'm going to stay on slide 2, walk through that, but if there's any questions that you may have, please stop me. We were engaged to perform an audit of the June 30, 2025 financial statements, as well as a review of the annual comprehensive financial report. We also are engaged to perform a uniform grant guidance audit, what we used to call a single audit, which is a federal grants compliance audit for the year ended June 30 of 2025, as well as 3 separate SOC reports, 2 SOC 1 Type 2 reports, 1 each for CAPS as well as TransCore, and then a SOC 2 Type 2 report for TransCore, as well as working with management on a year-round basis. And I'm on slide 2 of our executive summary. We have issued a unmodified, or if you will, clean opinion on the financial statements, as well as over internal controls over financial reporting. That is the best opinion that we are allowed to issue under generally accepted auditing standards. We noted 2 exceptions in the SOC reporting procedures. A SOC report's a little bit different from a financial statement audit. If we find any deviations, we are required to put those into the report. One of those had to do with timing of disaster recovery, and the other finding related to a missing signature on a form. We plan on issuing an unmodified, or if you will, clean opinion on the uniform grant guidance audit. We have no findings to date. We are being held up because we are waiting for a new compliance supplement to be issued by the federal government. We've used the draft compliance supplement. We believe that there's not going to be significant changes. Once that final supplement is issued, we will finalize the single audit. We discovered no instances of fraud, and nor were we made aware of instances of fraud. We discovered no material weaknesses in internal controls. We had no audit adjustments, and we received the full cooperation from management. I want to thank Deb Sharpless and her entire team for working with us, getting the information so that we were able to sign off timely on the financial statements. The remainder of our presentation is a summary of the information that we had discussed with the Finance and Administration Committee on November 13th. I know you guys have a full agenda, so I'll stop here to see if there's any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Any comments from our finance chair or other members? Member Ardinger?
Just for the record, your notes say that you met with the audit committee. I don't, if we could just change it to finance.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Correction? Thank you. Member Von Paris?
No, I think this work reflects the hard work and dedication of Deb and the entire team, as you mentioned, and I just wanted to also state that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Appreciated.
Member Von Paris.
All right, if there's no further questions or discussion, we thank you both for this report out, and we'll follow up if there's any questions going forward, unless there's other items that you wish to present.
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
The next item on this morning's agenda is approval of the fiscal year 2027 preliminary operating budget to be presented by Mr. Brown.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Brown, Budget Director for the MDTA. I'm here today to request approval for the fiscal 2027 preliminary operating budget. The fiscal 2027 preliminary operating budget is $463.1 million, which represents a $0.9 million or 0.2% increase versus the fiscal 26 amended operating budget. Some of the key variances are IT personnel costs being transferred between Object 1 and contractual services, increases in Easy Pass Service Center costs, increases in building and road repair and maintenance costs, and insurance costs, which are partially offset by reduced vehicle purchases, credit card fees, and some various other smaller reductions. In reviewing the budget, we break it into three major categories: mandated changes, discretionary additions, and discretionary reductions. As you can see, mandated changes are actually a decrease of $7.5 million. The drivers of the $7.5 million are personnel expenses for IT personnel, which decreased $8 million, which includes both base salaries and fringes, as they were transferred to Object 8 and contractual services. Future IT personnel costs related to the MDTA will be allocated by TSO as part of the IT consolidation. After accounting for this change, all other mandated expenses increased $0.5 million. The increase was due to overtime of $0.5 million. Base salaries, which excludes Maryland State Police, increased $0.2 million. This is due to two effects. There's a reduction of 12 positions due to the state voluntary separation program, which reduced it by $1.2 million. This was more than offset by employee reclassification and other costs. Pension costs increased $0.1 million, as well as employees and health retiree costs increased $0.1 million. Maryland State Police had a cost decline of $0.2 million. It's driven by health costs, state police retirement costs, and overtime, which totals $0.3 million. This was partially offset by various other Maryland State Police-related costs. All other mandated changes had an increase of $0.2 million across various sub-objects. The budget also includes $20.5 million in additional discretionary spending. The drivers are other contractual services, which increased to $8.3 million. This is due to the $8 million of IT personnel costs that were transferred from Object 1. Easy Pass Service Center cost increases by $5.4 million. This is mainly due to additional costs associated with the implementation of various initiatives aimed at improving our toll collection rate, as well as double-blind image reviews to help improve accuracy, and various other video-based transactions. Building repairs and maintenance increased $3.4 million. Most of this is due to a new swing gate contract for the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel and the Bay Bridge, which totaled $2.1 million. The remainder is due to the Curtis Creek Drawbridge contract, which increased $0.9 million. All others are various maintenance activities such as HVAC, overhead doors, plumbing, etc. Insurance, property and liability increased $1.1 million. This is based on a 10% forecasted increase in premiums due to market pressures. Radios and electronic equipment increased $0.7 million. This is due to a rate increase for the land mobile radios, which drives this higher spending. Security services went up $0.2 million due to a new security service contract at Point Breeze. Other replacement equipment is expected to increase $0.2 million due to the expected impact of tariffs, while janitorial services increased $0.2 million due to a new contract. Management studies increased $0.2 million due to total increased services, while all remaining increases totaled $0.8 million across various line items such as equipment repairs and maintenance and things of that nature. We had $12.1 million in discretionary reductions. The drivers of this are vehicle purchases, which decreased $9.1 million. This is due to adjustments of the anticipated timing of certain purchases that are going to occur in this fiscal year, fiscal 26, or next year, fiscal 28. Fiscal services decreased $1.3 million due to lower credit card processing rates. This is due to the implementation of enhanced credit and debit card transaction collection, which reduces the risk of fraud. Gas and oil has decreased $0.8 million to align with actuals in previous years. Computers decreased $0.3 million due to an adjustment in the timing of certain purchases. Electricity decreased $0.2 million, again to align with prior year activity. Additional equipment increased $0.2 million. This is mainly, decreased $0.1 million. This is due to Maryland State Police reduced needs, while transponders decreased $0.1 million as well. All other reductions totaled $0.2 million across various sub-objects. As you follow your presentation materials, you have the graphs which show the budget as by division and also by purpose. And finally, there's a summary of the PINs. The PINs decreased. We went from 1697 down to 1641. That's two reasons. The voluntary separation program, which were 12 PINs, and the IT consolidation, which was 44 PINs. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Any questions or comments from members of the board? All right, seeing none, Ms. Brown, you could just talk to us a little bit about pending board approval of the preliminary operating budget, where things go from here, just for everyone's awareness of the next steps in the process.
Next up, well, once this is approved, we have a approved preliminary budget, and that basically we wait till legislation session comes, it gets presented, and then in the spring we do one more round of this to finalize the budget. So whatever changes come out of legislation and what's changed between now and then, we make an update and have a final budget in June of next year.
All right, just thought we'd take advantage of maybe extra folks who are tuning in today to learn more about our process in general, so appreciate you for walking through everything for us. With that, if there's no more comments or questions, there's a motion to approve our FY27 preliminary operating budget.
So moved, Member Rosen.
Second, Member Cordova.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are approved. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. All right, item number 6 is our update on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, to be presented by Mr. Harkness and Mr. Wolf. As they are coming up here this morning, I'll take a moment of chair's privilege to just talk a little bit about where we've been in the past week with this project. Last week, the MDTA released the updated cost estimate range for the Key Bridge rebuild. And over the past week, I've had the opportunity, along with members of the team, to have many conversations with different stakeholders, elected officials, and colleagues about this project and its significance, not only to our local communities and region, but also to the greater national economy and landscape. A point I've stressed in every conversation is that the MDTA is working literally day and night to deliver this rebuild. We know that the absence of the Key Bridge means the loss of direct connectivity to the Port of Baltimore, an economic engine for Maryland and the country. We also know that every day that goes by without the bridge has real impacts on commuters in the Baltimore region. Congestion and shifting traffic patterns continue to disrupt the daily lives of many Marylanders. I assure you, the team is working at breakneck speed to get this project done, finding innovative ways to advance the project efficiently and effectively. I want to emphasize that the initial cost and schedule estimates for the rebuild were made less than 2 weeks after the collapse, without the benefit of any design or engineering studies. The team used the best data and information available to them. Those early estimates were critical to allow the project to enter into the Federal Emergency Relief Program. From the very beginning of the rebuild, we have moved forward in partnership with the federal government. They have been involved at every step of the way. That is the way the Emergency Relief Program is designed. The updated cost range and schedule estimates are not driven by discretionary extras or wants of the state, but by the complexity and scale needed to meet current federal mandates and standards. I look forward to the team's update today on the status of the project, and I'll now turn it over to MDTA Executive Director Bruce Gardner.
Thank you, Chair. I echo all of your remarks and sentiments. It has been a very busy time for us here. But before I hand it over to Jim and Brian, who have been doing an incredible job on this project, I just want to reiterate how the team is working so efficiently with our partners and our engineering consultants on this to deliver a modern construction techniques and to comply with the regulatory standards of today. The Key Bridge rebuild, as it reaches 70% design, the updated cost range for the project that we're bringing you today to fold into our financial plan that you need to review in our 6-year capital program is $4.3 to $5.2 billion, as you've seen in the press. That opening date of 2030 is 2 years beyond that original estimate, and Jim and Brian are going to be able to talk to you about the detail of why both the cost and the schedule have changed. We don't take either of those lightly, particularly for the local residents on the schedule change. And we're working with the department to do things that we can in the area to alleviate congestion. Being able to reach the 70% design in roughly 14 months since we brought the contractor is really unheard of in a project of this magnitude. There's going to be some material that Jim and Brian will reference in the board documents today that compares that to other comparable bridges in the country that are taking place right now. The MDTA and state of Maryland have and will continue to make substantial financial contributions. I think that's important to point out to both you and the public, so you all know that the $350 million in insurance proceeds that have been with the MDTA are being spent as part of the project. As the financial plan becomes before you after this item, there's financing costs included in that because we don't have the federal money throughout the process immediately. We're expecting that there will be a year lag to get those reimbursements. So we have factored that into the financial plan that you're reviewing and will hopefully approve today. Not to mention those things, but we're also leading that litigation effort. So the Attorney General has been working diligently on those efforts to make sure that the responsible party, the Dolly, will pay for the costs of the rebuild of the bridge and compensate the state. That is really not a usual thing in the emergency relief program. So we've been stressing that to our federal partners that Maryland is putting that effort in on that litigation so that money can be returned to the federal government as part of this process. Finally, I just want to conclude my remarks in saying that it has been a real privilege to work with this team. Anyone that has to come out with an estimate at that stage in the middle of the salvage operation that we were in at the time, and also don't forget working on those environmental documents so that we could get speedy approval of the environmental position for that categorical exclusion for the bridge. So thankful to Jim, Brian, and their team that are working on this and successfully navigating these challenges. Please, ask the questions that you need to. They're prepared for those if you need to reinforce anything in the remarks and the presentation they'll make today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. With that, Jim and Brian, please take us through your presentation.
All right. Thank you. Good morning. Jim Harkness, Chief Engineer for Maryland Transportation Authority, and I'm joined by Brian Wolf, our Director of Project Development. We'll be tag teaming on this presentation and just kind of setting the groundwork for Brian and his information. We have that first sheet that is in front of you. That is one of our updated renderings for the new bridge. It features pretty prominently our two pylons that are the main portion of our main feature of our cable-stayed bridge. It also has in it some of our pier protection as well as some other of the updated design features. And so For today's presentation, Brian will walk you through a lot of the details and give you a lot of information about what has gone into the design and what will need to be constructed in order for us to have a bridge that fully complies with current federal standards for safety. And then we'll touch on schedule and cost as well at the end. But at that point, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Jim. For the record, my name is Brian Wolf. I'm Director of Project Development and Office of Engineering and Construction. If you go to your second slide in your set, you'll see an aerial image of the proposed new Key Bridge. I'll draw your attention to what's noted as the main spans. That is the main cable-stayed portion of the bridge. That is the center span there is over the navigational channel. And then the two back spans, as we refer to them, make up the total of that cable-stayed portion. Immediately adjacent to that, you'll see what we call the marine approach spans. There are two spans on the southern approach, and that's to the left in the image. There are 5 of the marine spans on the right or to the north. And then those are then followed up by what we call the land approach spans. All told, we're a little over 11,000 feet or roughly over 2 miles of structure for this project. If you move on to your next slide, you'll see we have a typical roadway section here. The bridge will be carrying 2 12-foot lanes in each direction with 10-foot outside shoulders and 4-foot inside shoulders. And this is to meet the interstate standards governed by federal highway. And this was also a stipulation in the NEPA determination that we had received last July. What is not readily apparent here is behind the 2 outside barriers, we have 5-foot maintenance walkways. They actually serve sort of multiple purposes. It provided an offset for the cables away from the roadway itself, and that also helped from a structural design perspective with the geometry of the cables. But additionally, that additional 10 feet provided us better safety and improved wind stability as we went through our wind analysis. That additional width was beneficial from that perspective. I also point out all barriers, the outside barrier and the median barriers are all 42 inches in height, and that's to, again, meet current safety standards. Additionally, we have anti-climb fencing located on all of the spans over water, and we will have street lighting on the bridge for safety. Moving on to the next slide, to focus on the main cable-stayed spans. As you can see, we are over 3,000 feet in length. The main span is 1,665 feet. It will be the longest cable-stayed span within the United States when it's completed. It is providing a 230-foot vertical clearance over the navigational channel, and that's to comply with the Coast Guard's determination that we also received last year. Moving on to touch on the pylons. These are the main piers that support the cable-stayed bridge. Each one of these pylons rises over 600 feet above the water. And you'll notice we have what we call cross beams or struts, one located directly under the roadway deck, and then there's one over top of the roadway. Each one of these struts is 20 feet by 20 feet square, 95 feet long. The bottom strut is solid concrete. The upper strut was able to be hollow, but the concrete walls are still 2 feet thick all the way around. They are substantial elements in the bridge, and they provide stability for the towers themselves. The vertical legs will be constructed in lifts. There'll be 31 of these lifts. Each one of them is about 15 to 20 feet tall, and that's in order for constructability purposes. 'Purposes. Moving on to talk about the foundations a little bit. The cable stayed span is supported on 6 foundations, or 6 piers. Touching on the tie-down and transition piers, as you see in the image here, each one of those foundations is supported on 10 steel pipe piles, and each of those piles are 8 feet in diameter. All told, the cable-stayed foundations, there will be 130 of these 8-foot diameter piles that will be installed. Touching a little bit on the next slide with the pylon foundation themselves, each of these pylons will be supported on 45 of the steel pipe piles, and each one of those piles will be over 200 feet in length. And again, they are 8 feet in diameter. And to give it a little bit of perspective, these pile caps that are supported on these piles are roughly the size of 2 NBA basketball courts side by side. Each one of those pile caps are also 20 feet thick, and it will take roughly 1,300 truckloads of concrete in order to place all of that material in those foundations. And that'll be done in 3, what we call 3 lifts or 3 layers, and that's to control the properties of the concrete as it cures and as we're placing it. I want to touch a little bit on the pier protection system on the next slide. Each of the main pylons is protected by a fender ring. That ring in overall size is the size of an NFL football field. The ring is also 20 feet thick, similar to the pylon foundation. Each one of these fenders is supported on 78 of the steel pipe piles. They are also 8 feet in diameter. The other 4 piers, the transition and tie-down piers that I mentioned previously, they are also protected by fender systems. They are slightly smaller. As you saw in the notes, there's the main fenders are around 41,000 cubic yards of concrete. The smaller fenders are around half that, at around 21,000 to 23,000 cubic yards. All told, the protection system will be supported on 276 of these steel pipe piles. On the next slide, I'd like to touch a little bit on the approach spans. The marine spans are roughly 2,219 feet of the bridge. They are going to be steel curved girder spans. The span range between 300 to 330 feet, and they are supported on 7 2-column piers. The foundations for those piers, slightly smaller steel pipe piles, but still large at 48 inches in diameter. And there will be 126 of those piles. Looking at the land spans, the land approach spans, that's roughly 5,431 feet of the bridge. They are supported on 36 concrete girder spans. These are pre-stressed girders, about 150 feet in length. And they are on 36 of the 2-column piers. And those piers are ranging between 24 to 124 feet in height. The foundations for these piers are using 36-inch steel pipe piles, and there are 648 of those. In the next slide on the construction equipment, just wanted to touch on, to build a structure of this size, we need substantial equipment on site. So as we get into construction, we're looking at using 2 of the largest fully rotational barge cranes on the East Coast. One is currently here on site. It is supporting the pile load test program that we've been talking about over the last several weeks. There'll be a second one coming on in order to build the foundations. We will also be needing multiple tower cranes, and that is to support the construction of the pylon legs as we go vertical. And also to support the construction operation, we will be constructing a temporary access trestle for material deliveries and for crane placements in order to construct the bridge. And we're looking at that as roughly 3.4 acres of temporary trestle that have to be built in the river to support all of this work. I'll now turn it over to Jim to walk through some of the schedule.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So Brian did a great job sort of really detailing the scale and scope of the design elements that were incorporated into the bridge, in order to meet the federal requirements for safety. And so now we'll be able to talk a little bit about the implications of that size and scale in terms of the cost and schedule for delivering the project. So on the slide with the construction duration for cable-stayed bridge spans on the left, you can see the image is depicting the foundation. So that's all the large number of steel piles that Brian talked about, as well as the concrete footings and the vessel protection. All those systems were approximately 1 year for the work that it takes to install and construct those foundations. So then once we're out of the water, we'll start building the pylon towers. So those pylons consist of 2 separate towers for each of those pylons, as well as those cross beams that Brian mentioned. That duration for that kind of activity, again, kind of doing it in 31 lifts for each of those towers, takes approximately 2 years. And then on the right, on the cable stayed portion, now that's constructing the bridge deck, the cable stayed portions, and that is working horizontally, so kind of out away from the pylons, and that work takes approximately 2 years. There is some overlap in those activities, so while we're building these pylons, part of the benefit of selecting the type of pylon we selected here was given our ability, as once we reach a certain height, we're able to start working out horizontally from that pylon. So there is a bit of overlap in some of those numbers. Can move on to the next slide. This one, I apologize, it's a little out of place, so bear with me. But we have this slide to kind of give a little information about comparable cable-stayed bridges projects that are currently ongoing in the United States. So at the top in green, you can see our Francis Scott Key Bridge project, which is a progressive design build. Design began in 2024, and we've progressed over 14 months from 0% design with our contractor to now having 70% design plans in hand. 2 of the other data points of using progressive design build delivery, the Mobile River Bridge and Brent Spence Bridge. You can see they began their project efforts much earlier, 2018 and 2019. They've progressed to beyond 30% now and should be at around the 60% mark for their design efforts. But they've, as you can see, taken a significantly more amount of time. And, so the team, Brian's team and the contractor have been working at breakneck speed to design this project and deliver it as quickly as we can, but making sure that we're doing things in a safe and prudent manner. And finally, our last data point there is the Gordie Howe Bridge, which was a design build, but planning efforts had started much earlier than we showed here, but essentially they started at 30% design in 2018 and was advancing into construction, and they are just now getting set to open to traffic in January or February of 2026. And then we'll go to the next slide. This is our construction critical path. So it's a little bit of a busy graphic, so bear with me. At the top, you can see an elevation view of our bridge, and with the cable stayed portion there in the center. On the right axis, the y-axis, you can see we have years starting at the bottom, working up from 26 to 30. And so what these green polygons are meant to represent are just the construction activities that are necessary for each of those the portions of the bridge that are up above, so you can kind of transfer that down and see where they would start working. So For example, at the very bottom in the center, you'll see the green polygons that represent the pylons. So those would be on our critical path to opening the bridge. So that's going to be the first things that we're working on. And so we're going to be working on those pylons. And you can see as that kind of advances upward through time, we start to introduce additional headings. So we start off with working just the 2 pylons, and then we start to work on the tie-down and anchor transition piers as well. And then the contractor will start working on the approach span. So it gives you an idea that they will be working multiple headings out at the project site at the same time to advance this project as quickly as possible, with the critical path still running through those cable stayed spans. So as you see, as they work up the page in the middle, you start to work on the cable stayed span, so the sort of forms that Y shape. That's when we start to go horizontal, and then you finish that off with the bridge deck and barriers, as well as the final finishes in order to open to construction in 2030. On the next slide, we have our cost update and our schedule update. So as was mentioned earlier, the cost range is now $4.3 to $5.2 billion. And in that pie chart, you can sort of get the representation for the major components that make up that cost. So in the blue is our cable stayed main spans. In orange, we have our pier protection systems. The green and the blue are the portions of the cost that are represented by the approach span north and south. And then in purple, we have our engineering and inspection costs. On the right side, we have our schedule update. So as I mentioned, we have 70% design in hand, and we will now be progressing to the estimating process. That estimating process does take a couple of months, but by having the ability to estimate precisely, it gives us a better certainty on the cost control. So we would be doing the estimating from December into March of next year. At that point, we would then go through the reviews and adjustments as necessary with the contractor. That would take place March into April. We'd have our first binding price proposal as in early April. Now, the contractor can offer up to 3 times, so that would, again, be an iterative process, perhaps. In April, we would be having the negotiations based on those binding price proposals. Then by the end of April, we would expect to have the point where we have a deal reached or we have no deal and a possible off-ramp at that point. Assuming that we are able to reach the deal with our contractor, we will have the final legal clearances and approvals from Federal Highway for the project modification. That would take place in May. And then by the end of May, we would come to this board and present the contract modification for your approval. That would allow us to then issue notice to proceed to the contractor for Phase 2 in June, which would then allow for the opening to traffic date of late 2030 and a final construction closeout by the end of 2031. And my last slide, just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the cost controls that Brian and his team have implemented throughout this Phase 1 of the project so far. We have 6 of these listed for you, but I'll just kind of talk about 3 of the more important ones. The second one, risk workshops. So we've worked proactively to identify and assign risks to the relevant parties. We've been doing that as we've been working through the design. The risks are identified and categorized by their likelihood of occurrence, their potential impacts to both cost and or safety, cost and or schedule, sorry. And then we also, through that risk process, are able to really focus on the most significant risks that have the highest impact to our project, and we were able to work on mitigating those. One example is progressing the design instead of estimating at a 30% level or a 50% level, the decision to advance that design to 70% to drive down as much risk as we could before estimating. Another activity that we undertook was the comprehensive cost savings workshops. So the team worked together with the contractor to identify and evaluate over 140 potential cost-saving ideas, and we were actually able to implement 37 of those, resulting in approximately $200 million of savings in design. And finally, just highlight the independent cost estimating process. So we have an independent cost estimating firm on board that has been working open book with the contractor. They've been working on the early work packages that you authorized in May. They've been working through full estimates on those side by side with the contractor, and our independent cost estimator will be continuing to do that estimating work alongside the contractor as we head towards the binding price proposal. MDTA actually also hired a second independent cost estimating firm to perform a blind estimate. And so working separately from the initial ICE as well as our contractor, we have another data point to help validate overall project cost. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, Brian. Questions from our members. Member Cox.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Brian. I can tell you, sitting here since March of 2023 and watching where you are today is incredible, 24, I mean. And I can tell you, for 13 days, getting an estimate and seeing where you are today is like incredible. I don't think anybody could have forecast what the cost is today or what it was at that point when you made the estimate. And I commend both of you for your diligence and just providing not only an update, but where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Cox. Member Ardinger.
Echoing the same, thank you for all your hard work. This is a fantastic presentation. I appreciate that. I'm looking now at, I'm back to page 3. And I'm a visual person. So looking at some of these, the layout of this bridge, how did that change from when you initially were visualizing this bridge and again, recognizing that that was right after the incident?
Are you talking, I'm sorry, are you, just for clarification, are you on the cross section? The typical section. Okay. So the typical section varied in a little bit in, number one, in sort of our assumptions on the type of pylon that we were going to have. We imagined a slightly different pylon, and so that was one change that was necessitated by our desire to efficiently build this bridge, and sort of some of that overlap that I talked about, the ability to build vertically and horizontally at the same time. This type of pylon allows for that. Our original assumption, that wasn't as possible, so we gained some efficiency through that. And then because the safety standards for AASHTO required that we have more distance between our pylons, as well as the Coast Guard requirement for a higher clearance, that drove a large increase in the overall height of those pylons. So those pylons increased by more than 20% in height from what we were originally assuming based on that 13-day high-level rudimentary estimate.
And I'm assuming then that also contributed to the additional cost, the change in the pylons?
That's right. So those changes in scale of these bridge elements had an effect on both cost and schedule for all of those safety-driven changes. Yes.
Thank you.
Jim, if I could just kind of follow on there a little bit, I think when we're looking at the typical section, the lane width configuration, that may look fairly similar to kind of some of the initial estimates, if I'm thinking correctly, but when we think about, maybe even the slide before, exactly where our alignment sits and what some of the vertical clearance assumptions were, does that get into a little bit more of the pylon costs and associated drivers and delta that we see from the initial estimates and where we stand today?
Right, yeah, so we knew what some of the interstate requirements were going to be for cross-section, so a lot of those elements were accounted for. But, what we were able to do through our pre-construction activities that we've been updating you on over the past 10 months, we were able to get out and learn things about the site conditions at the bridge. It resulted in being able to finalize an alignment that looks a little bit different than what we came out with in the initial estimate, and then all those the assumptions on protection and things like that had to adjust based on what we were able to learn when we brought our design team on board.
Sorry, one more for me, and then I promise I'll allow others to as well. You just mentioned site conditions. Does that include things like what's at the bottom of the riverbed and other geotechnical types of components?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the pre-construction activities included a lot of exploration, both on the land side as well as on the river side, kind of understanding those conditions of the soil types underneath the water, especially, and that kind of information led to a lot of the design efforts that were detailed by Brian in terms of just the size and magnitude of the number and the dimensions of those foundations.
Thanks so much. Other questions? Member Von Paris.
Well, first of all, I want to echo some of the comments from our executive director, Bruce Gardner, and just say that thus far, you, Jim, and Brian, and the team has done an incredible job, in my view. This is a massive project, and also I appreciate the fact that that you're putting safety first throughout this project, and what you're doing now and what we're going to have once it's completed. I do have two quick questions. Is there a contingency plan in place if the costs continue to rise? That's one question. I'll ask the other question now, and you can answer them that way. Speed it up. Is this project in compliance with the current DBE rules? So there are my two questions.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The current DBE rules, are we in compliance? This project in compliance with the current DBE rules? Did you get the first one? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yep. Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll-
All right, so for the cost containment, obviously, we are just now entering into that estimating process, so we'll be, locking in real pricing right now. So our contractor will go out and solicit pricing from subcontractors that enable us to have real-time pricing on this job. So that gives us a level of certainty on the pricing that we receive throughout this estimating process. That will be shared with our ICE as well, so that they're working from the same numbers. So that information gives us the cost certainty there in terms of what we come to negotiate for that binding price proposal. So at that point, we'll have a very good certainty in terms of the price that we would be locking into with our contractor and coming to agreements with. And we do still have those risk items that we talked about that are worked out between the contractor and between MDTA in terms of the amount of risk that we have and anticipate for the contract. But again, a lot of that risk was built into design. So since we advanced to such a far percentage in design, we feel very good that we've driven down those risk, the risks for the project in terms of schedule and cost to the point that it's as small as it can be and still advance this project on schedule. Then in terms of DBE, that we have currently, we're in this phase 1 of the contract, and we're in compliance with that. And then so phase 2, we would be looking to follow the current rules from the Federal Highway for the DBE program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Paris. Jim, other questions, Member Rosen?
So, thanks, Jim, and Brian. So, 2 questions. One is, I was a little surprised by the length of time it takes to build up the pylons, but I'm not an expert. So anyway, I was just curious what the limiting factors are to doing that quicker, if it's even possible. And then the second question was some related in relation to the estimated cost on the graph. So it looks like about a quarter of the pie is the cost attributed to the pier protection. So I just didn't know if you could expand on that more, because that's obviously inflating and increasing the overall budget.
I'll touch on the cost component, and I'll ask Brian to touch on the schedule for the pylons. But yeah, I think the pier protection is, as you said, about a quarter of the cost, and the requirements for that pier protection, as we kind of explained when we got into some of the information that we dug into with our designer in terms of the future fleet of vessels that will be going through here, as well as the characteristics of the channel and the river, that led us to protecting not only the main pylons, but then also protecting an additional 4 piers, 2 on each side as well, in order to be in compliance with those specifications. So because of the geotechnical conditions that we have at the bridge, we had to go with that rigid fender system that was detailed. And so there are just a very large number of steel pile, very significant size, 8 foot, over 200 feet in length, concrete filled, and then a very significant cap on top of those, the fender system itself, the concrete that is going to be responsible for arresting an errant vessel. So those are very significant works in themselves, and being that they're integrated around the footing, there's a lot of coordination and timing that is affected with that work immediately around all the footings. So that's what really drives up the cost on that kind of component.
So with respect to the pylons, the reason it is taking a little over 2 years for each of those, they have to be constructed in lifts. It's a mass concrete operation, so we have to be careful with how the concrete cures over time. It requires a cooling system to be installed, and that has to be monitored. We have to control how it generates a lot of heat as it cures. We have to control that, or we end up with cracking and serviceability problems with the concrete. So we have to limit how much we're placing at one time to control that. What also plays into it is the way these are constructed, the formwork. It's a traveling type formwork in order to go vertical like that. So they'll start at the bottom, and then that traveler or that system has to move upward. And so it takes time to move that system up, reset it, tie all the reinforcing, and then go through that operation again with the pouring of the concrete, the curing system, and everything else. It is a time-consuming process. There's really not a lot of ways to get around it. It's simply because the elements are so large. We have to be able to control it as much as we can.
Thank you both. Other questions? No? Member Cordova?
Yes. So first of all, congratulations on everything you both and your team has been doing. This is very impressive and exciting at the same time. Talking a little bit further about pylons and the main spine and the pier protectors and all of these items that are necessary for this bridge, they're not only aesthetically pleasing, which they are, it's a good-looking bridge, but also they respond to function and regulations, like you've been saying. Can you talk a little bit about that as it pertains to the cost breakdown a little further? How much of this function and necessary regulations are driving the price?
Yeah, I think this bridge is basic in its nature. It is driven by the function, and then we're essentially just designing to standards. So we haven't added extras into this bridge. This is not sort of MDTA looking for icing on a cake. This is boiled down. This is the minimums of what are required for adherence to the design standards set by AASHTO, by the bridge permit required by U.S. Coast Guard, and so everything that has gone into the design, meeting those larger dimensions, that's all driven our costs to where they are today, and based on market conditions, that's the resultant of the changes that to meet these safety requirements. That's where we're estimating the costs as well as the impact to schedule.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Cordova. Any questions from our members who are joining us on the line today? Member Sneed? Member Carroll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering when the final date would be for the estimate on the tax bill in 2026. So we have a clear idea of the price.
I believe for the record, Member Sneed, the question was on timing of final price in the spring.
Oh, okay. Yes, we're currently expecting to receive the first binding price proposal in early April, and so estimating process would wrap up in March. So in that March timeframe.
But I think the other, on that schedule too, it's the board would be seeing that in May, right, for the approvals?
Yes. So while we would receive that from our contractor, the processes would play out over the next 2 months and would allow us to bring before you, a negotiated binding price proposal in May for your May board meeting.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Member Cox?
Just, again, thanks to the whole team again, and just being on this board a little over 9 years. It's been not only a pleasure, but watching the nice Middleton Bridge construction came in on budget or under budget, on time, and obviously before the final deadline that you projected, it was finished. I just hope as we move along, we can be informed of the progress and where we are. Thanks again.
Thanks. Our team is committed to doing all we can.
Member Carroll, question from you or comment?
I'm sorry, yes, Madam Chair, 2 questions real quickly, and I do apologize if I missed this in Jim's overview. Jim, could you speak to how common it might be for a project of this size and scale to have an initial estimate that differs significantly as we're seeing from what the revised estimate ends up being?
Yeah, thank you, Member Carroll. We have, I touched on a couple of other data points of current projects ongoing. They do have and have over their several years of development released some information on their expected costs or estimated costs, and those numbers have trended up for each of the 3 other projects that I had listed there. And they are seeing price increases as well. We don't have any recent numbers for the other progressive design builds, but they are nearing the point where they would too also be estimating and entering into their guaranteed maximum price. So we expect that at some point they too will be releasing updated cost and schedule figures. It's just that because we are pressing forward, we know we're in an emergency. Every day counts for this project. We have just leapfrogged the other projects. We've gotten out in front of them, and so we're having to come forward and kind of update our costs before we have any other comparables at this point. But we fully expect to see some higher numbers from the other projects as well.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for that. And just as a follow-on to that, confirming what I think I heard you say earlier as well, bridge being built to standard does not include bells and whistles that might be cost drivers that make it more cost prohibitive. We are doing, it seems like we are building a viable product to standard without any sort of extras, if you will.
Yes, I can confirm that, Member Carroll. Again, we've gone through some of those cost savings workshops to identify ways that we can make this as lean and mean as possible while still, not compromising on safety. So we won't do that. But we have put a good amount of effort into identifying and implementing ways to reduce the cost on this project.
Thank you, sir. That's all for me, Madam Chair.
All right, thanks so much. Any final questions from our members? Okay, with that, we'll move to our public comment portion of this agenda item. Thank you so much, Jim and Brian. County Executive Pittman, please feel free to come on up to the presenters table for your comments. For both of our commenters today, there will be a 5-minute time limit on the presentation of comments, and this, just to confirm, not a question and answer session. No questions will be answered during this time, but we do thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
All right. Well, I'll be brief. I represent the 600,000 folks of Anne Arundel County, about more than half of whom live in the northern part of the county and are very dependent on this bridge. And so I want to thank this team. I want to express some sympathy and some solidarity. I know that y'all aren't the drivers of the price. If it were up to you all, this thing wouldn't cost much. It's I was a little bit shocked, I will say, by some of the commentary that I read in the press about this from elected officials. And I think the biggest threat to this project that I see is the politicization of it. So the transparency has been extraordinary from day one. The mere fact that initial estimates were made public and so clearly public is one of the reasons why people are complaining, because the initial estimates were so much lower because it was designed for a bridge, not knowing what the federal regulations would be at the time and not knowing the nature of the bridge that would be built. But it had to be done and it had to be made public. The speed with which y'all have moved is pretty extraordinary. I mean, you've talked about that at length. I think the design build innovation has been brilliant. I was out there just a few weeks ago and got to see some of the work that's being done on the test pilings, and the fact that that's moving forward before the design is done is outstanding. And the fact that the design is at 70% already. We do capital projects in our county that take years and years and years. Just look at the Bay Bridge and the progress we've made on that. I want to commend you for the speed with which you've moved and the transparency and also the professionalism and the safety, the fact that nobody has been injured in this process and that if y'all are careful and we're all careful, that will remain the case. But I want to express some sympathy because I knew from early on that, we're in a very political time where the federal government has said, Congress has said 100% of the costs they will bear, and that, some folks are looking for reasons not to do that. And for our local elected officials, whose job it is to hold government accountable, Maryland General Assembly and at every level, the temptation to take these big numbers and this extended timeline and blame people for them is always great. And so I'm expressing solidarity because I want to call on and encourage all elected officials in Maryland, those of us who represent the people who want this done quicker and want this done for less money, to call on them to get on board and be part of Team Maryland and support this work and recognize the professionalism of it. If we are united, we will get 100% of our federal funding. If we are divided, things will slow down, and they'll slow down a lot. And we've seen what that can look like. So a huge thank you from the residents of Anne Arundel County for the work, the professionalism. This is a team that's been around for. These are not a bunch of rookies. Been through some projects, and we're just very lucky to have them doing it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful design. And I look forward to the ferries that will go from Annapolis to Baltimore City and the Eastern Shore by 2030 that we're starting to work on, going under that bridge, and all of our residents being able to see the beauty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. County Executive. Delegate Long, please feel free to join us at the presenters table.
I want to first thank this team and the work that you've done. I think if you guys have moved exponentially very fast, because I know this is a large project. We bragged when the bridge fell that we come back building better, stronger, and quicker. My concerns are, the timeline, well, the prices also, but the timeline when you added 2 years to the constituents that I serve was very upsetting. I live in eastern Baltimore County. We live on the east side of the bridge, and everybody that lives on our side depends on the key bridge to be able to get to the other side. Problem is, it's put all that traffic into the Harbor Tunnel, the Fort McHenry Tunnel, and traffic has just been horrendous, as you well recognize. Time is of the essence of this bridge, and I agree with the county executive. I don't want this to become politicized. I want us to work together to make sure this can be done in a timely manner. That's what this is all about. And like I said, your team actually brought us out and actually witnessed them doing the test piles. I understand this is a big project. I can't wait until June 2026 when you get the notice to proceed, because then I think we'll have a lot of stuff behind us. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of what you've already said. The time is of the essence for the people of the eastern side of Baltimore County. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate, for spending time with us this morning. We'll make sure that both of your comments are incorporated into the official record of today's meeting and also integrated into the work and our steps forward. Thank you all so much for the detailed presentation and discussion on this item. With that, we'll move forward to agenda item number 7, which is an approval item for the final fiscal year 2026 to 2031 Consolidated Transportation Program, to be presented by Ms. Stump.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Jennifer Stump, and I'm the Assistant Capital Program Manager. And today we're seeking your approval of the proposed final fiscal year 26 to 31 CTP. The 6-year fiscal year 26 to 31 budget in the proposed CTP is $8.4 billion. Attachment number 1 outlines net increases and decreases in various individual and summative categories of the proposed CTP, which reflects a net increase in the 6-year fiscal year 26 to 31 budget of $3.4 billion, as seen in attachment 1, line 6. The fiscal year 26 to 31 net increase is the result of the following project and reserve changes incorporated into the proposed final CTP, as shown in attachment number 2. We've added 2 system preservation projects, 1 environmental project, and 1 information technology project for a net increase of $7.4 million. For construction phases of 5 projects was funded for a total of $284.1 million, transferred from the reserves as designed, reached 60%, and cost estimates were established on fully developed scopes. For projects that had modified budgets to reflect completed or canceled projects, 10 projects were completed or canceled for a net decrease of $828,000 in the fiscal year 26 to 31 period. For modified active projects due to cost changes and cash flow adjustments, 10 projects, excuse me one moment, please. My apologies. Adjusted cash flows and funded changes in engineering and/or construction budgets for 97 projects for a net budget increase of $3.4 billion. And in the reserve changes, the allocated reserves had a net decrease of $339.7 million, and the unallocated reserves remain the same. In attachment number 3, it details where the projects are by facility. To note, 61% is at the Key Bridge, 10.4% is at the Kennedy Highway, and 9.9% is at the William Preston Lane Memorial Bridge. Attachment number 4 details the projects by category. Key 1 being 62.3% in bridge replacements, 13% in structure preservations, 10.5% in safety and capacity improvements, and the rest of the categories are each under 5%. That concludes this presentation, and again, we're seeking your approval of the fiscal year 26 to 31 final CTP. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Any comments, questions, Capital Chair? No? Questions or comments from those on the line? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the FY 26 to 31 CTP?
Member Ganjemi, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Member Cordova.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all so much. The item is approved. Thank you, Ms. Stump.
Thank you.
Our next update this morning will be a traffic and revenue forecast update to be presented by Mr. Long.
Hey, good morning. My name is Walter Lawn. I'm the revenue manager with the MDTA. I'm here to provide the MDTA board with an annual update to the traffic and revenue forecast. So each year, our independent consultants, CDM Smith, generate an updated 10-year forecast, and we're going to take a look at how our new forecast compares to the previous version from October of 2024. So if you scroll to the bottom of the memo, there's 2 attachments. The first will be a PowerPoint presentation, and then the actual report from CDM Smith. So we can skip down to the presentation. And on page 2 of the PowerPoint, sort of a summary or key takeaways. So the investment grade forecast is updated annually in the fall by our T&R consultant. And the current forecast for fiscal 25 through fiscal 31 totals $5.56 billion, which is an increase by $33.4 million, or 0.6% compared to last year's forecast. The projected increases in administrative, in-lane, or ICC, and ETL revenue are partially offset by the delayed reopening of the Key Bridge. If you go down to the next slide, we'll take a look at the breakdown in total, and then by legacy ICC and ETL, the changes to the forecast. So in total, you can see, well, starting left to right on the slide, you've got a table which shows the total revenue, the October 2024 amount, which is last year's versus this fall update, and showing the difference. Then there's a graphical representation, and then some notes off to the side. So essentially, in total, it's just a rehash. It's $5.56 billion for this time period, an increase of $33.4 million. Then if we focus in on the legacy revenue, so the main factors for changes were obviously the delayed opening of the Key Bridge rebuild from fall 28 to winter 2030. And then new term growth rate was re-benchmarked based on recent trends. And there is also the updated construction-related impacts associated with the BHT Plaza conversion. Essentially, it's going to be delayed due to the Key Bridge, but then it's going to be offset by a shorter project duration, which has been expected. So our total revenue reduction for the legacy is $108.7 million during this time period. If we scroll down to the next slide, we have the ICC and the ETL revenue by fiscal year. And so again, for this one, they just did near-term projections. They re-benchmarked everything based on what we saw in fiscal 25, including average toll, which more accurately adjusts the vehicle class distribution, and the trip lengths, as these are both trip building facilities. So the total revenue increase for the ICC and ETL is $38.2 million. And I think I jotted down, like a breakdown, ETL made up about 17 million of it, and the ICC about 21 million. For total administrative revenue, this is increased civil penalty collections are assumed based on the NOTD payment rate adjustments. Essentially, more people are paying late, which results in more people getting civil penalties. And so we're seeing an uptick in civil penalty revenue in general. On top of that, you'll see a one-time increase in fiscal 26. And so when we review what's at CCU, or the Central Collections Unit, to be collected, there's still a lot that has been referred over this past year, because essentially the debt has to wait, goes to the MVA first for flagging, has to wait for the registrations to expire before it can go to CCU. And we've seen a lot get pushed over there, and we're seeing high collection rates from CCU in general. So due to that and it continuing into Q1 of this year, they decided to increase it. So the total for that category is 104.1 million. If you go to the next slide, it just shows the total change. So they do a 10-year forecast for us. So in total, for the full 10-year time period, it increased by $56.8 million. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions on our TNR update this morning? All right. Seeing none, hearing none, we thank you so much for the work of you and the consulting team.
Yep, thank you.
With that, we will move on next to our next approval item, which is the final fiscal year 26 to 31 financial forecast to be presented by Ms. Sharpless.
Good morning. For the record, my name's Deb Sharpless, MDTA's Chief Financial Officer. The financial forecast that we're presenting to you incorporates the several items that we just discussed, including the updated traffic and revenue forecast, the preliminary fiscal year 27 operating budget, the final CTP, and, sorry, I'm scrolling. Give me 1 second, please. The forecast, since we're talking about modeling, the forecast assumes the upper end of the Key Bridge cost at $5.2 million. And it also assumes 1 year delay in reimbursements from the federal government to ensure that we can manage through any circumstances that may arise. The forecast also assumes 100% federal funding. So we maintain coverage through fiscal year 27. In fiscal year 28, our debt service coverage breaks below 2 times coverage, our legal requirement to maintain 2 times coverage. This has been forecasted by the MDTA for numerous years now. The change in the Key Bridge cost has not impacted the timing of that increase. We maintain rate covenant is met through fiscal year 2030. It falls below 1 times coverage for the same reason, additional revenue needs to be generated. And we meet our $400 million unencumbered balance throughout the year, and debt outstanding exceeds $4 billion in fiscal year 2029. So if I move down to the actual forecast on your second page, those numbers you can see are highlighted. There's in the peach section of the forecast. When a toll increase occurs in fiscal year 28, the bond revenue that are highlighted, they will be reduced because there'll be additional net operating revenue. And then also on the forecast, you'll see where we have FSK short-term financing. This assumes certain financing that will need to occur for us to cover the costs of the bridge until such time as we're reimbursed. On that front, not only do we still have insurance proceeds that haven't been spent down yet, The federal authorization for $217 million has occurred, so that those funds are sitting and ready for us to draw down. So from a forecast perspective, at this second, that year assumption about delays in reimbursement is conservative for us. Our recommendation is that we continue to make that assumption, moving forward until we have a little bit more history. So the forecast, in all honesty, has not changed significantly at all. It's, the federal funding makes a huge difference, and we're seeing good, timely reimbursements. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Deb. Any questions on the financial forecast update? Member Arndinger.
I think you answered this, but in regards to our reimbursement from the federal government, I'm assuming you'll be requesting those reimbursements on a monthly basis, on a, how do you usually?
I would say it's periodically, because sometimes it can be more frequently than once a month, and sometimes it'll be a little bit longer. With the emergency relief program, there's substantial documentation that happens on the front end demonstrating that any expenses that we're seeking reimbursement is federally eligible. So that's the long pole, is being able to go through the process and document all expenses are reasonable, they're eligible. We go through that process. Afterwards, we make the request for the reimbursement. And generally, between the time that we make the request for reimbursement and we actually receive the funds, either because we're receiving from our insurance proceeds, which is a transfer process, or we're actually receiving them out of a federal coffer, usually takes no more than a week.
So in your calculation, your 1-year delay estimate, is that based on the time that it's actually been paid out?
That is the assumption from the time that we pay the expenses to the time that we're received reimbursement. And so for this, past year, our reimbursements have been significantly faster than 1 year. And having the $217 million authorization already enacted and available for drawdown is all a good sign that the timing is likely going to be much faster than the 1-year assumption. But for forecasting purposes, we feel like we need a little bit more history before making an adjustment.
Thank you.
So keeping it conservative for now.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you, Deb. Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, just to clarify, so that the reference, I'm glad Deb mentioned the $217 million, because that's going to be an annual appropriation process to the emergency relief program. So I think, that we have to wait and see how that plays out every year. Hopefully the past will be predictive of the future, but that's why we had to make that conservative assumption, because of those different appropriations along the way.
And I just would want to comment that I think, Deb has worked very closely with, the whole project team, including representatives from other parts of MDOT as well, who are facilitating in making sure that we have all of the coordination with our federal partners set up in advance, so that hopefully as we move through things, things continue to move smoothly. But I think that the assumption for right now makes sense. But thank you for all of the work that's been occurring over the past several months to make sure that we're in the process to just move forward very swiftly with the reimbursements as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Member Von Paris?
A quick question. With this massive project, do we need any additional training or personnel to manage this?
We brought on a consultant. Office of Engineering and Construction helped us in that area, that are federal reimbursement experts. They are assisting both MDTA as well as sister MDOT agency with the documentation to prove eligibility. They've been very, very helpful, and we may, in fact, bring on someone else part-time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Member Rosen?
Thanks, Deb, for your presentation. So with the debt, at some point, it's going to exceed $4 billion. We're going for a request for north of $5 billion. What's the interplay with that, with getting reimbursed for a lot of these costs and paying down that debt, and when that's going to occur?
The timing of the federal reimbursements, that can impact whether or not we need to do short-term debt. That's what the forecast is showing, is short-term debt, interest only, payments. It is not a large factor. It contributes, but it's not a large factor. And even from a liquidity perspective, we are in good shape right now. We originally talked about a bond sale that we were going to do next month. We know that we can push that off for quite a few months.
And I guess what I'm asking is, so our bonds it's increasing, exceeding $4 billion, and that's already net of receipt of the federal dollars. So in effect, our general bonding requirements, not including the FSK, are at that level.
Let me ask, Alan's here. Alan, can you join me, please? Sure. I don't want to misspoke because I heard something differently the other day. Alan, the FSK financing, is that included in the outstanding debt? I believe so. Okay.
It is. And so we've modeled, based on those lagging delays, we've modeled about $1 billion of intermediate term financings to fund the Key Bridge. So as the spending ramps up toward $1 billion a year, and we have these one-year lags, we're going to need shorter intermediate term financings to cover that. And so that will count toward our bonds outstanding, even though at the end of that construction period, and as the spending peaks, we expect to start paying down that shorter intermediate term debt. And so the bonds outstanding will fall back below the bonding limit. But we may need that bond cap increase, to the $5 billion to deal with that lag and that reimbursement speed.
Thank you, Alan. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, hearing none, is there a motion to approve our final fiscal year 26 through 31 financial forecast?
Motion to approve, Member Cordova.
Thank you, Member Cordova. Is there a second?
Member Artinger, I'll second.
Thank you, Member Artinger. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Alan. Alan will be staying with us for our next update, which is the biannual review of revenue sufficiency.
So this is really a companion with the financial forecast. The board's operating policy requires a biannual review of revenue sufficiency to determine if current toll rates and fee levels are appropriate relative to our projected operating costs and capital budgets. The financial forecast demonstrates that current toll rates provide adequate revenues through fiscal 27 to meet these forecasted spending and policy requirements. Our last biannual review was done in June, and I would refer everyone to the table on page 2. It shows the key legal requirements or policy goals during the program period. So you can see the rate covenant, that's part of our trust agreement. It requires a minimum 1x coverage, and that can be met through fiscal 30. The debt service coverage is both a policy goal and also a loan covenant. So we're required to maintain at least 2x debt service coverage, and that's can be met through fiscal 27. The importance of this measure is that it helps to maintain credit ratings in the AA ratings category and access to the capital markets at the lowest possible financing rates. The unrestricted cash target is also driven by rating agency expectations. The ratio is referred to as the days cash on hand ratio. Tolling agencies are expected to have essentially unrestricted cash that's equal to your annual operating budget. So we last increased that target In 2023, we had been maintaining at $350 million, and we would anticipate, based on normal increases in the operating budget, that we may need to come back, to the board again in fiscal '28 for another increase to maintain that 1 year's essentially days cash on hand. In conclusion, the current toll rates provide adequate revenue through fiscal '27 to meet forecasted spending, as well as all legal and policy requirements in terms of debt service coverage and cash reserves.
Thank you so much for the update. Any questions, comments? Mr. Gardner?
Thank you for the record, Bruce Gardner. I just wanted to comment after the combination of these presentations. You all that have been experienced with this board know that that we take the revenue estimation process very seriously, and you can see the results as we're not providing you with any surprises. I think that's really important. It helps us with our stability as we go through things. So I just want to compliment Deb, Allen, and our team, Walt, on just making sure that they have the due diligence throughout that process. That that we can handle things. We don't have multiple new updates for you. Cost is one thing. We've explained that, but on the revenue side, you can see how consistent the team is.
No, thanks so much. I know all of our members take their fiduciary responsibility very seriously as well. So thank you so much for the presentation. Our next agenda item is an approval item, a contract modification for KB 49030000, the Key Bridge Rebuild Progressive Design Build Contract Modification Number 2.
Okay. Today I'm presenting a request for approval of additional early work package funding so that we can continue work that's on the critical path for the Key Bridge rebuild. So this past May, the board approved contract modification 1 to KB 4903, which allowed for the issuance of early work packages on the project. At that same time, the board authorized a not to exceed amount of $250 million for those early work packages. The early works packages include the land demolition. We issued an early work package for pile materials, for trestle materials, as well as a laydown yard. We also had an early work package for pile installation, as well as mainline trestle installation, and the pylon template procurement. So in order to continue progressing work on the critical path in the coming months, additional funding is required. The work necessary to advance the critical path includes footing material procurement. So the footings that we described earlier, we need to buy those materials early, and we also have additional pipe material necessary for all of those piles that we will be driving out in the river. So we are requesting an additional $95 million in early works funding, increasing the not to exceed authorization for the early works packages at $345 million. And with that, open it to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Harkness. Questions?
This is Member Ganjemi. I will move for approval.
Member Cox, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, those on the line. Thank you, Mr. Harkness. All right, per our adjustment at the top of the meeting, we are going to move back now to agenda item number 4, which are our contract awards to be presented by Mr. Davis.
Good morning. I hadn't talked in a while, so my voice didn't work. Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here to present 4 contracts for award. I'll go ahead and jump right in. Contract number 1 is FT 3028, miscellaneous structural repairs inside the Fort McHenry Tunnel. The work to be performed under this contract is located at the Fort McHenry Tunnel on I-95 in Baltimore City. The work locations are the southbound and northbound roadways designated as bores 1 and 2 southbound and bores 3 and 4 northbound. The scope of work includes miscellaneous structural concrete and steel repairs throughout the tunnel, ceiling and wall tile replacement, and retaining walls at the entrance and exit of the tunnel portals. I'm asking you today to approve the execution of this contract to the selected low bidder, Restoration East, whose bid of $5,268,778 was below the engineer's estimate by 18%, but was evaluated by the Office of Engineering and Construction, and they found it fair and reasonable. The bidder, Restoration East, also committed to the 15% MBE sub-goal, MBE goal, and the 1% VSBE goal. There were no protests for this bid. Are there any questions?
Any questions from members? Member Cox?
Move for approval. Member Cox.
Second, Member Rosen.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry.
Contract is approved.
Okay. The second contract here is contract number MR 3043, on-call structural repairs and miscellaneous modifications. This project is a multi-award for up to 3 contracts to provide labor, equipment, and materials necessary to perform miscellaneous structure, concrete, and other related repairs, upgrades, replacements, and new construction as directed by the MDTA's project manager. This work may be required on any portion, i.e. bridge, tunnel, highway, building, and any appurtenances of any of MDTA's facilities. The 3 lowest successful bidders will be awarded not to exceed contracts in the amount of $15.5 million, $14.5 million, and $11 million, respectively. You will see we have 5 bids with the 3 lowest bidders, all underneath our engineer's estimate. Bronner Builders Incorporated at $9.6 million, MD Miller at $9.7 million, and Concrete General at $13 million. As this is a not-to-exceed contract, what they were bidding on was their rates that they're going to charge us for the work orders that are performed underneath this contract to the not-to-exceed total amount. There were no protests on this bid, and all bidders meet the MBE goal and the VSBE goal. Are there any questions?
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Member Cordova?
So Bronner and MD Miller are considerably lower rates than others, and then the engineer's estimate? The
Yes.
rates? But they're qualified, we've worked with them before?
Yes, we have a long history with both firms. They have held these contracts before, so we have a lot of confidence in their ability to perform the work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any others?
Member Gangemi, I'll move for approval.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second, Member Cordova?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. Contract
Thank
is
you.
approved.
Okay.
Next.
The next contract is MA 3024, system-wide CCTV replacement. The work to be performed under this contract is located along multiple MDTA facilities, including the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, Fort McHenry Tunnel, Francis Scott Key Bridge, John F. Kennedy Memorial Highway, Thomas J. Hayden Memorial Bridge, Intercounty Connector, and William Preston Lane Jr. Memorial Bridge. The project will upgrade existing CCTV roadway cameras and camera lowering systems, upgrade existing tunnel cameras with new PTZ cameras, upgrade existing CCTV security cameras, and upgrade fiber optic communications equipment. This contract received a single bid. The procurement officer made several attempts to increase awareness of the project through direct solicitation and extension of the bid due date to offer prospective bidders sufficient time to respond. When the single bid was received, the procurement officer evaluated Aldridge Electric and determined their bid is fair and reasonable and that the firm is qualified to complete this specialized work. You will see on the summary, it was a 10% above the 9.9 million was 10% above the $9 million engineer's estimate, which is well within our threshold. So a bid justification was not performed, but the Office of Engineering and Construction did look at the bid and confirmed that they were comfortable with the pricing. This firm also meets the VSB goal of 1% and exceeds the MBE goal slightly at 18.07%. Any questions?
Thank you. Member Ernger?
Just any thoughts as to why there is a failure to receive other bids?
Yes, so we went in there knowing this was somewhat specialized. So we were going to be looking at highway electrical companies. We were going to be looking at CCTV companies. since a lot of this work is on active roadways and in our facilities, it really took a firm that was specialized in both. So we reached out to a lot of our traditional electronic contractors, and they said they were either unavailable or it wasn't really in their specialty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The incumbent, do we have an incumbent?
We do not have an incumbent for this work.
No?
No,
Okay.
this is an upgrade to the systems. They will then, I imagine, per the specifications, maintain them for some time, and then there may be a maintenance contract if needed afterwards, but there is not a current CCTV contractor that they're replacing.
And there's no other one available within the MDOT system? that does
Available
it?
contracts for this work?
Yes.
I do not believe so because of the specialized nature of the CCTVs inside of our tunnels and on our major facilities.
So we've gone through that process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
That is one of the first, before we even go to the street,
Okay.
we will always look at statewide resources.
Okay. Usually works in our favor when we have people competing for it, so.
Yes.
I urge that we try to do as much of competitive bidding as we can.
Yes, sir, understood. That is
All
our
right.
goal.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification on sort of the specialized nature of the system with, you know, the tunnel system. I was thinking about state highway and some other resources they might have, but understood that this is unique implementation, skill set, et cetera. So good discussion here. Any other questions or comments? Of course, Member Arnger.
I'm sorry, just to follow up. Did I understand you then that this was unique because we're actually combining two areas that weren't combined before?
No, sorry. What I was trying to say was our bidding pool was going to be more niche because we're looking for someone who's both an expert in electrical work on the highways and open roadways and someone who is an expert in the CCTV, the low voltage CCTV systems. So, you know, we spread our net out to electrical contractors and security firms and CCTV firms. And, you know, we had multiple rounds of sending out requests, invites to participate, and we just weren't able to garner any attention for this work.
So we had not combined those two before and prior?
No, I can't speak to how it was done priorly, how those systems were installed. I don't know if Jim has any, or was that more of operations? I'm going to ask Jim to clarify the systems.
Yeah, so historically, this is the first full CCTV replacement and upgrade contract. We have historically rolled out our CCTV cameras within capital projects in those areas, or we've done it through some of our area-wide or on-call projects, you know, a camera location here or there. But this is our first holistic approach at a replacement and upgrade.
Okay. I'm just trying to, I'm assuming there's some type of cost savings here, treating it in this manner, because it sounds like we're kind of progressing in a different manner than, and are other agencies doing the same?
I haven't checked with State Highway Administration, but this is our cameras are reaching the end of their life, so it is necessary for us to do it sort of this blanket replacement on our equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Arnger. Any other questions? Thank you, Jim, as well.
Thank you.
All right. If not, is there a motion for approval on contract MA 3024?
So moved, Member Rosen.
Member Rosen, a second?
Member Arndinger, I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Contract's approved. Last one up.
Great. Excellent questions. Thank you. Last contract I'm bringing you today is contract J1B56000027. This is for IBM Maximo Consulting Services. This is a sole source contract to provide consulting services for the IBM Maximo system, currently utilized by the MDTA as its asset management system. The services include architects, delivery consultants, and project managers, which will be utilized to build and upgrade the current Maximo system to the Maximo Application Suite version 9. Sole source procurement is required because the IBM Corporation is the developer and proprietary owner of the Maximo software, and only technicians from IBM can provide the upgrades required for MAS version 9. The total amount of this contract would be $5,065,328.80 for a 5-year term. As this project exceeds MDTA's delegated authority, this will be presented at the next available BPW meeting. Any questions?
Any questions?
This member again, Jimmy, I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
This member Von Paris, I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Thank you so much.
Approval. Take it to the next BPW. Thank you so much, Mr. Davis. All right, bringing us back down the agenda. Our next approval item is the Investment Committee report to be presented by Mr. Cullity.
Good morning, members. My name is Kevin Cullity. I am the Director of Treasury and Debt for MDTA, and we are here to go over the quarterly investment report from the Investment Committee. In the interest of brevity for today's heavy agenda, we will not orally review the entire material. Investment returns and portfolio composition were discussed in greater detail during the November 13, 2025 meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. The committee members support a continuation of the investment strategies for all accounts. In closing, we are seeking board approval for the continuation of the investment strategies and benchmarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cullity. Any comments from our Finance and Administration Chair or other members of the board?
This is Member Von Paris. The investment committee, our advisors, the finance committee as well, all support this present position. So I just want to report on that. Thank you.
No, thank you for the report out, and I always like to emphasize and thank our members and staff for the work that we do in between meetings. We bring, a lot of the final outcomes to these meetings for update and approval, but I know that a lot of work happens in the interim, so I just thank everyone for their diligence and detailed work throughout to bring us to the point we're at today. Are there any other additional questions or comments on this item before we seek approval? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion. Member Von Paris.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Member Arndinger, I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the report's approved. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. All right, our next agenda item is an update on the fiscal year 2025 revenue assurance metrics. Bringing back up Mr. Lund.
All right. Good morning. My name is Walter Lawn. I'm the revenue manager. And let's see here. So I'm here to give an update on the disposition of toll transactions for fiscal 25. So ultimately, the goal here is to demonstrate the MDTA's performance in ensuring revenues collected. And essentially, we accomplish this by showing the final disposition of all toll transactions that go through our lanes and see what percentage of them are falling off, either not being billed at all or being billed and not collected. So this analysis is done by transaction date, so the date that the transactions or the vehicles are going through the gantries. And if you look on the memo, there's a list of categories that are essentially we're going to break down all the transactions into. And we'll go, in the PowerPoint presentation, we'll go into more detail for each. So before we get into that, and we had presented this at the Finance Committee as well, but the IBTTA, or the International Bridge, Tunnel, and Turnpike Association, they have a revenue assurance committee who's been working on essentially standardizing definitions and metrics and a way for all the different agencies to have an apples-to-apples comparison of how their performance is of processing transactions. So we essentially modeled our analysis off of what they created so that we can compare back and see how we've done. So that being said, we'll go down to the PowerPoint, slide number 2. It's the summary of toll transaction processing. And essentially, before we get into what our dispositions are, we'll do a quick walkthrough of how tolls are processed at the MDTA. So when a customer goes through the lane, they're captured via the transponder or an image of a license plate. And so at that point, images are reviewed and unreadable plate transactions are discarded right away. Then the remaining transactions are sent to the back office for processing. And essentially, transponder reads are going to process as Easy Pass transactions, so with either home Maryland accounts or through the IAG. And then the plate reads, they can still post to Easy Pass accounts as iTolls, or they can post as pay-by-plate transactions, or they'll get invoiced as video tolls. So the next slide, slide 3, it just shows a summary of our fiscal 25 performance. So 94% of all the total lane transactions have been or are expected to be collected. 4% of the total lane transactions have been billed but are not expected to be collected. And 2% of the transactions were not billed and will not be collected. If you go to the next slide, slide 4, we've got a graph here that shows the total disposition of all the lane transactions. And you see obviously the large piece in purple there, Easy Pass is the majority. That's Easy Pass that's collected. There's a tiny pink sliver, which you can barely see on there, but that's Easy Pass that's uncollected or unbilled, and that's essentially IAG rejects. The green is the pay-by-plate transactions that are collected, and then the blue, starting with the 7.5% and to the right, we'll zoom in on that on the next slide and take a closer look. So if we go ahead and go to slide 5, the 5% to the left of the graph, that's video transactions that have been collected as of the time of putting this presentation together. And then the 2.5% that's got the stripes in it, that's essentially what's projected to be collected of the video tolls based on our historical performance. The 4% to the right of that is video transactions that were billed but remain uncollected. And essentially, these are still, we don't collect them within 3 years, but the CCU continues to collect until we eventually will dismiss them entirely. To the right of the 4%, you've got your video transactions that are unbilled. So that's 1.8% of all the total lane transactions. And a breakdown of those are address unavailable, license plate unreadable, or other, which would be incomplete or filtered transactions or transactions that come over from the lane without an image. So only 0.1% of all total lane transactions. The address unavailable is pretty straightforward. We've got the license plate, we send it out to either our MVA or another state's DMV, and we don't get customer information back. So essentially, it's dead ending. For the license plate unreadable, we'll go to the next slide and look at a little more detail on what reasons a license plate would not be readable in our system. So the license plate missing is the top reason. It's about 50% of all of them. And it's either they didn't mount it or it's just mounted in a non-conventional spot or like in their windshield, just somewhere where it just can't be detected. The second most common, about 25%, are license plates that are obstructed, like mud, snow, bike rack, trailer hitch, or sometimes intentionally with duct tape or other covers. The third is we just labeled as policy issue. It's about 15% of them, and it's customers with an out-of-country license plate or a federal government license plate, which we are not able to get addresses for. And the final issue, which is what we monitor to improve our performance, is the system issues, stuff like camera angle, exposure issue, out of focus, stuff that our lane should be kind of monitoring and fixing on a regular basis. Yep. If you go to the next slide, it's just a comparison of fiscal 24 versus fiscal 25, and it's rolling them up into 3 categories. So it's either collected, uncollected, and billed, or unbilled and uncollected. And you can see from fiscal 24, we're at about 93.9% of all lane transactions were collected. And in fiscal 25, it's about the same. It's a slight improvement, 94%. And just a key takeaway at the end is just revenue is expected to be collected from about 94% of the total lane transactions in fiscal 24 and 25. and it just remains consistent year over year. And so we will be presenting this each year annually to kind of see where we're landing. In the appendix, there's some more detailed tables if you want to take a look. But I guess at that point, I'll conclude the presentation.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments? Member Von Paris.
Quick question.
Yep.
As it relates to commercial vehicles
Yep.
and the front plate of the tractors, are we, is there any, when they're obstructed intentionally or not, or they're not there, they're missing or whatever, are we, I don't want to go too deep in this, but as far as an enforcement standpoint, where, people would, or these drivers that are doing that would say, hey, don't want to go into Maryland. Do we have any enforcement side to this that's, sort of a little bit aggressive enforcement? This is big money, I think.
Member Von Paris, thank you for asking the question. You saved me from barging in and asking to be able to comment. So again, Executive Director Bruce Gartner, we will be bringing some proposed legislation to the board next month that will help us to, we believe, address those first two categories of a missing plate and the license plate obstructed. So in certain vehicles that are carrying a trailer with them, if we can't get that front image, which was required on all commercial vehicles in the U.S., but if we can't get that front image of that plate and they don't have anything, we can't use the trailer under current statute to collect those tolls. So we're looking at legislation that would allow us to classify that trailer in those instances as a motor vehicle and send the billing that way. If there needs to be a transfer of the liability for that toll from the trailer, in the case of a commercial to the tractor or the towing vehicle, we have a process to do that, and we've heard that there's states that have some efficiencies, and we're looking at other states to get some efficiencies before we introduce that legislation. But we are doing things legislatively, administratively to address some of these, the non-collection that you see here. There's always something we can do better, and we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Mr. Lon.
Yep, thank you.
Member Arndinger.
Kind of based on that, it appears that the likelihood of collection increases if by the use of an easy pass. So
Yes.
from a legislative standpoint, and especially with our commercial and our non-commercial, is there a way, maybe upon the sale of a car, that automatically the easy pass, because there's no charge for the easy pass itself, correct? It's just, you have to connect your credit card. Any way to
Correct.
get that through, that we at least are covering potentially more vehicles on the roadway?
So with respect to transponder, you're absolutely right about it's the best way to collect tolls, and a properly mounted transponder is the best way to make sure that tolls are being collected that way. So we've been engaged in a lot of education on that effort. Every new employee presentation that I make, tell them they're now ambassadors for people to mount those correctly. So education is one thing. A mandate on transponder usage is difficult. The second thing that is going to be helpful coming in the future with newer fleet models is we're working closely with the interagency group, the Easy Pass Consortium, on the new cars that will have the ability to have that a built-in transponder, essentially. So, it's technology improvements that we have to do, and we're working with different car manufacturers so that equipment, the original manufacturer's equipment, is starting to help in that process as well. So there's lots of things on the technology side that can help improve that. One of the committees also is approving, the reads, second blind on reads on our video capture. So we are employing technology to help with these numbers as well. The mandates, we're trying all these things before we would ever kind of go to that mandate point.
Mr. Gartner, any other questions? I think that concludes the presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Lon. And with that, we'll move to our final official agenda item, which is our Executive Director's Report from Mr. Gartner.
Okay, thank you. lot of information, at this meeting. Don't usually go past the 2-hour mark for you all. Appreciate you sitting through the questions and the presentations here to respond to your questions. There are likely to be many more on the Key Bridge project in particular. We will continue to keep you updated as more information rolls out. I do want to emphasize that the team is doing as much as possible as fast as possible. I think that extra work authorization that you all approved is just one example of us keeping our foot on the gas to get the bridge as much out there that we can as we are waiting for that phase 2 final negotiation point. We also continue to work with our federal partners. So the Secretary referenced some of the conversations that we have had, but just want to assure you that at that level, that's one example. The federal partner in federal highways will have to approve doing that as we go forward. So assurances that we're doing everything in compliance with the emergency relief program. It's just part and parcel of what we have been doing as part of that project. So a lot of work that goes in as they're preparing for these presentations, but more information will be coming out regarding the Key Bridge and in real time as we work to assure those federal partners that that 100% funding is worthy of the state of Maryland, or the state of Maryland is worthy of the 100% funding, I should say. We've covered, so much about the Key Bridge, but we continue to provide as much education out there as possible. Hopefully you all are noticing that with our different social media posts. The media day, I think, was helpful to the public to understand that when we can get the press out there. We're probably going to be closed down a little bit for the tours on the water during the winter season, but we glad some of you had that opportunity to join us, as well as you 2 elected officials represented how they had seen some of the project work up close. So we will get back to that in the spring. Also related to the federal government, just wanted to acknowledge at this meeting that there was the NTSB board meeting on the 18th that presented a lot of materials as they prepare their final report on the container ship Dolly and the Key Bridge, and with their recommendations. I think a lot came out there. We are still reviewing those that came out. They haven't issued the final report. It was a matter of looking at the things online. But we still do maintain, especially in light of that report, that the collapse of the Key Bridge and that loss of life was the sole fault of the Dolly and gross negligence. And I really do thank the Attorney General's office and the litigation team for continuing to do their due diligence on that process. That we were approved and had permits for that existing bridge. What you're seeing with the design that Jim and the team have presented are the standards for new bridges. I repeat that, the standards for new bridges. So they're not new, but now that we're building a new bridge, that's when they come into play. You saw the pie chart on the table there with respect to the main span and the pier protection are such a large part of the project and a large part of the difference between our original rudimentary estimates and the estimates out there, and I just want to reinforce that. So on a lighter note, the fall season and our meetings up in Hartford and Cecil County were the last of the CTP meetings that took place between last meeting and this meeting. Thank you to the members that were able to attend those, and thank you to the team from planning and programming with Carl and Melissa, and also our communications office with Brianna, John Sales, and then our government relations team that has to kind of help get through those process, respond to questions, present materials. So the other thing I wanted to follow up on, there was an event this past weekend that followed the June meeting approval that you all had of a recommendation to dedicate the Muncaster Mill Road Bridge over the ICC, Maryland 200. That dedication was to Army Private First Class Justin Davis, who enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2005 and was unfortunately tragically killed in June of 2006 in the Kunar province, and when he was attacked by indirect fire while on patrol during combat operations. So there was a ceremony at the Flower Hill Elementary School this past weekend. I want to thank Melissa Williams for representing us and members of the MDTA police who were there in attendance at that event. On a happier note, we did celebrate an anniversary yesterday with the Fort McHenry Tunnel, so 40th fairly significant milestone for yet another huge infrastructure project that connected our community in Baltimore. We had a chance to engage with the operations staff over at the tunnels and really reflect back on that November 1985 opening of the Fort McHenry Tunnel, which was the largest underwater highway tunnel at the time, as well as the widest tunnel built by the immersed tube method in the world. So, had breaking new ground then in a planned project with the tunnel, and continue to break new ground today with our current efforts. But that was a vital link along the East Coast. Could you imagine today without having that in place, right? As facility. So very very important, significant undertaking that the Baltimore City Intercounty or Interstate Division and the authority undertook at that time. So from that pleasant anniversary celebration, I'd like to say it's also kind of a sad occasion at because this is Deb Sharpless's last board meeting. I wanted to take a moment to recognize her and her contribution. Hopefully she will be back in December for a more formal presentation at that time, as we typically do with retirees. But she is retiring after nearly 24 years of distinguished service to the state of Maryland, including the leadership roles at the lottery, and more than 17 years of exceptional service to the MDTA. As Chief Financial Officer and a trusted executive leader, Deb guided us through major capital projects, transformative tolling modernization, and profound challenges. And she's always done that with integrity, expertise, and unwavering dedication. On a personal note, I'm going to say something similar to what I said when Kim Millender left, and that Deb was one of those folks that I talked to before coming back on board. It was people like Deb and Kim that I came back for. Please don't worry, just because they're leaving doesn't mean that I'm out the door tomorrow or anything. We've got a great team. She has introduced me to incredible members of her team that you've seen in action today and in other times. Really strong bench, as we like to say, to follow in Deb's footsteps. But she, has just done so much, not just for us, but for the industry. Her representation of MDTA on different organizational groups, both nationally, IBTTA board, and regionally with the Easy Pass group and chairmanships of that group. She's truly admired for her leadership. We did both attend the national IBTTA conference in October, and you could just see around how much respect she had among all our colleagues across the country, and it's made it easier for me to step in and to those organizations and to help lead this MDTA. So we're so grateful, Deb, for your leadership, and not only that, but your kindness and loyalty to the agency and to your colleagues. I'm going to miss you tremendously, and just want to say thank you on your last week with us in the office here. So she picked quite a week to see us out on. So anyway. So look, how do it's hard. I wish I could have just stopped there, but I can't. One more thing to bring up is that upcoming in December, we have some big events coming. On December 10th, we're holding the police graduation ceremony, and looking forward to all the hard work that the chief has done. Lieutenant Colonel Ron Salford is also with us here today, but the next day they'll be holding promotional ceremonies. So a lot of upward movement with different departures. We'll be celebrating one of those coming up shortly. But wanted to just say that we look forward to those new commanders being in place. I was able to be with several of them at yesterday's event, and just again deep bench. On the police side, rising up to take that next vacancy. We have a new major. We'll have a couple new lieutenants or new captains, and several new lieutenants in place, as well as at the lower ranks. So, with that, I will conclude my remarks, and thank you again for your time and attention today.
All right, thank you so much, Executive Director Gartner. Deb will share all of our kind words for December, but do want to recognize everything that you have done for this agency, for the state, for me personally. You're a true leader and mentor in many ways. With that, it does bring us to the end of our agenda for the morning. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Member Cox.
And a second?
Second, Member Rosen.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We stand adjourned at 11:11.